All right, thanks, Scott Shannon. Glad you are with us. Joining us now is Congressman Scott Perry, and he's been working on a bill to call for accountability for the attacks and the mishandling of the incident in Benghazi. And also in the wake of the terrorist attack at the consulate, he and some other congressmen have announced that they're introducing legislation that will reform the U.S. State Department bureaucracy to protect the lives of American diplomats overseas. Congressman, how are you?
I'm great, Sean. Longtime listener, thrilled to be on. That's absolutely right. And it is a bipartisan bill. We do want to make accountability in the Accountability Review Board and the State Department. The sad thing is that you actually have to do this. So I got to ask the same question that every American's asking. We've got Secretary Hillary Clinton, and this board finds that these people allegedly were culpable. Okay, and that's specious in itself. But let's say that's correct. She can't fire them? She can't fire them. I understand the board can't, which is what we're going to fix. But literally, she's the Secretary of State. She's breaths away from the presidency, and she can't fire these people. That's the problem with the federal government at so many levels.
Well, I want to know, because there's too many unanswered questions here that I want to have answered before all this is said and done. And I want to know, for example, why I still have not gotten a good enough explanation why they denied the request for added security. Do you have an answer to that?
No, there isn't. Well, I do have an answer, actually. The circumstances didn't fit the election message, and that I think is really the overarching theme of what's happening here. It was an inconvenient truth. As you know, the president and the secretary were out telling everybody that Al-Qaeda was, running with their tail between their legs, and radical Islam and terrorism was over. And Obama, who had killed Osama bin Laden, had now cured the world of this ill. And so they made a calculated choice during an election, on the eve of an election, to jeopardize the lives and safety of U.S. diplomats and the diplomatic corps in favor of the narrative that they wanted to portray to the American people. I don't know how you can come up with any other conclusion than that at this point.
Well, I want to know who the people were, the top-level administration people, because it has to be top-level to deny the additional security before the attack. I want to know who refused in the administration to send help after the attack started. Apparently, we have two examples where people were told to stand down that wanted to help, and I want to know who in the administration, this had to be top people that intentionally misled the American people, the public, about what happened during the attack, because it seemed like a coordinated effort.
Sean, we are going to get to it. It is a slow process, and everybody wants to know the answers to the exact same questions that you do. I mean, Mr. Hicks, Ambassador Hicks, told us, in the hearing yesterday, and told the American people that that security, well, that wasn't Mr. Hicks. It was the other gentleman at the end of the table that said that approval, because of the status, the posture that embassy and that consulate was in, that approval went to the secretary herself. And she has a level of culpability. In Mr. Hicks's testimony, he said that, of course, he heard from her chief of staff about his conversation with a good congressman from Utah, and that he was not supposed to have that conversation. He was not supposed to be engaged. He was not supposed to whistleblow on the facts that he knew. So I would say also, we not only do we want the names, but look, I know people don't want to hear the word cover-up, but the man, has 20-some years of excellent service, decried by the very people that now told him that he could not talk, he could not convey the message, he could not disagree, and when he did, then he was punished for it.
Think of all that we learned yesterday. We learned that 2 stand-down orders were given while the Benghazi attacks were in progress that could have saved lives. We learned yesterday that this YouTube video was a complete fabrication. We learned that it was not spontaneous as they claimed. We know that Clinton's lawyer at the State Department, Cheryl Mills, is telling witnesses not to speak to House investigators. Seems like obstruction to me. The diplomatic personnel on the ground, they were brave. And then we know that Democrats came to rebut the witnesses here, but they don't have any explanation how they knew that what had happened, and then they altered the talking points to tell us what didn't happen.
Because there isn't any explanation, Sean. They altered the talking points. As I said, they made a calculated choice during an election to alter the talking points to fit the narrative. That's all this is about. And while the Democrats are saying, this is just a partisan attack, it appears partisan because, quite honestly, the Democrats don't want to get to these answers. They don't want to hold anybody accountable. So they're talking about funding and all kinds of other things that have nothing to do with the issue at hand. As we know from previous testimony, funding was never an issue. Security was denied. Talking points were changed. The narrative was changed to fit a political agenda. And you said it yourself. This is at some point. This it seems like it's a cover-up.
It seems to me what needs to be done now, because we know that Eric Holder would have the authority as Attorney General to appoint a special prosecutor, given all the high administration officials who might be involved in the scandal, even as witnesses, including the president. Obama could direct Holder to do such a thing. We all know that's not going to happen. So it seems to me that what we ought to be doing now is convening a special investigative committee, not 5 separate committees, with the single purpose of investigating this scandal, to get the answer to these questions with full subpoena power, witnesses under oath, interrogations, for example, interrogatories for the president. What do you think?
Yeah, I think we're going to have to get to some point where we get to that. And I don't know that we were at that point before, while it was 5 separate committees. I told the chairman of the Foreign Affairs Committee that I would move to put my name on that bill if nothing came out of this report. We're going to revisit that issue, obviously in the upcoming days here, because we have to get to some resolution on this. And, of course, the answer that the Democrats have is, well, we just want to use this as an example to make sure that it doesn't happen again. Meanwhile, assigning no blame, no culpability, no responsibility, and nothing for the lives that have been lost. That's kind of their program here. The president's statements and the secretary's statements and the ambassador's statements to the UN, Hicks made the point that it stopped the investigation by the FBI for 17 to 18 days. There was a crime scene that was open. People were walking around it and so on and so forth. These folks, these 3 individuals in the pictures that perpetrated this crime are on the terrorist watch list, the terrorist lookout list. We don't know where the heck they are. He might have got Osama bin Laden, but he's not doing too much to get these 3 guys.
Well, we wouldn't have gotten bin Laden without enhanced interrogation, which he opposed, and without Gitmo, which he said he was going to close again and again and again. But, well, Congressman, great work. Keep it up, and thanks for your insight. And I hope that committee gets formed, that investigative committee, and I hope Boehner gets on board with that.
I think you're right, Sean. I got to tell you, the other day I was driving in, and you were talking to the drone camera operator, and I was screaming at the radio, and I was trying to call your show because the secretary said there was no drone feed. And this guy confirmed that, again, it's obfuscation, it's trickery of words, and at some point it smacks of a cover-up to me. Great work on your part.
I got to tell you, what's sad about this, Watergate was a lot about the lie and the cover-up. I mean, what's going on here, they've dug a pretty deep hole for themselves. And I'm not sure in this day and age of technology and emails and texts, et cetera, if they're going to be able to cover this up the way they think they might be able to.
Well, and we hear there's more coming, and the big difference between this and Watergate is 4 dead Americans.
Good point. All right, Congressman Scott Perry, thank you so much for being with us.
Thanks, Sean. Great talking to you.
All right, 800-941-SEAN is our number. If you